My name's Kyle Stumpenhorst. I'm the owner of RR Buildings. Been building post frame for, I don't know, 13 years, 14 years. So you've been 12. So yeah, okay, 12 years. This is Greg Haas. He's been with me the whole time. And the point of this demonstration is really, post frame has evolved a lot since we started. We started with putting posts in the ground. We started doing a lot of things, physical labor, and over the years, we've just kept trying to innovate, try to make it easier on us, easier processes, and just better overall end results, good buildings for our clients. Not just for our clients, but also for us to challenge ourselves, to make us better, and to try to push the industry a little bit further forward so that we don't look like just post framers. You guys have gotten that probably before in this industry. It's not always the most high end of structures that you're building, but the thing is, this industry is going that way. We're getting more calls for high end structures. And so today what we're going to talk about is kind of where we started versus where we're at now, and the wall assembly, high performance. Barn dominiums are such a buzzword right now. Everybody wants them. I mean, call after call is for barn dominiums. Show of hands, who gets calls for barn dominiums? Yeah. So my thought is we're building these structures for homes. We can't just build them like it's going to store a piece of ag machinery. We got to think about things a little bit differently because they're being used a little bit differently. So behind us here, this is kind of, we wanted to have like just a little bit of a small demo of what we would do or how we started building these structures, 12 years ago. And that was, typical post frame. My thought was we should always put a house wrap. People weren't doing it, but I came from residential and it just didn't seem right to just put metal on the outside. So we would always do a house wrap. And then when we turn this thing around, we'll kind of show you guys what the inside of a typical wall assembly looks like. But are we all using house wrap for the most part now on buildings? Yeah, I see a lot of head shakes. I'm not saying, I guess the most important thing I want to say at the beginning of this is nothing I'm saying about this is bad. Okay, I'm not saying that if you don't do whatever we're going to get into, then you're not building good. This is just, we're trying to just bring it to the best possible way. So there's always more than one way to skin a cat. So I don't want anybody to think that if you don't use house wrap that you're not building, good, right? We are in a small town. There's a lot of guys building structures, and it was how do we set ourselves apart? How do we do things different? So that's really what drove a lot of these innovations. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of flip this around and we're going to walk through kind of the wall assembly that we're doing now. I'm actually building my own personal shop, and this is kind of where we got the idea. We've been working on this probably for the last couple years, this assembly, trying to get it a little bit better. High performance. Just by show of hands, anybody know what a blower door score is? A blower door test? Okay, good. So we'll get to that kind of in the future also. So let's go ahead, Greg. Let's wrap this around and let's go over the kind of the first part. Also, guys, we kind of messed up a little bit. One second, Greg. And I didn't put turning casters on this front, so we got a little bit of manual labor. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do in our new assembly is, I guess, this limits you. When you do house wrap right to your girts, you really only have, in my opinion, one good option for siding, and that is metal, right? Anybody have another good option for siding? Anybody doing anything unique over top of a girt for anybody? I see nobody jumping out to say yes. So what we've gone to is, in a lot of the communities, people are like, hey, I want to do a barn door, but I can't have a metal sided exterior, right? So we've gone to fully sheathing our buildings so that we can do any siding just like any home. And I think there's a lot of benefits to this. Greg, let's bring that bad boy in. I got the muscle here, so Greg is the muscle. So what we've been using a lot is this panel. This is made by LP Building Solutions. You've probably seen Zip Board. This is an integrated WRB panel. Anybody use a product like this? Okay, so for those of you that didn't raise your hands, what's really nice about this is once you've installed it, you're going to install it just like any other sheathing. Now, we're going to use screws because I want to be able to remove this here later. But this is your structure panel. So we're not worried about, shear in our walls. We don't have to worry about tons of angle bracing. When we get our wall sheathed, we're good to go. We've got our strength. But also, we can install any sort of siding that we want. stone veneers, lap siding, horizontal, vertical siding, board and batten, whatever. So we're gonna go ahead and get this guy put up here real quick. And if anybody's got questions, raise your hand. Greg's got a mic and we'll get them answered. So you gotta look at questions while I'm doing this, okay? You got multiple jobs here. Okay, let's get this tacked up. Any questions about WRB panels yet? So one of the benefits of this panel is not only, like I was saying, it's structural, but this is your weather resistant barrier. So we don't have to house wrap this. We don't have to worry about, a lot of times we're out in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know how many times I'd be working on the job site with house wrap and the wind's blowing it off, right? I don't know if you guys deal with that everywhere, but it's like the bane of my existence is the sound of flapping house wrap. I would gladly pay for this product just so I don't have to listen to that sound. All right, why don't you go ahead and bring that in here, Greg? We don't need to put tons of fasteners in here. Okay. Bring it in. So I'm still going to gap this product. That's for expansion, contraction. Through a lot of experience now, especially being so intimate on my own build, I've seen where these panels have opened and closed with the tapes. So I definitely, people have asked me, do you really need to gap your sheathing because they see it on social media? That's another beauty of social media, guys. I don't know how many of you post out there, but if you do social media, be prepared for everybody to tell you how you're doing it wrong. So you just got to be prepared for that. And a lot of times, that's how I learn stuff, because we're not perfect and we are constantly trying to learn more stuff. So by putting yourself out there, it may be a little bit intimidating, but you're going to learn a lot about your process, your methods, and maybe where you can definitely improve them. Okay, so once you have your panel up on this sort of system, Greg has some tape, and this is the tape that goes with the system. And instead of having to come through and maybe get on your ladders and hold a 10-foot roll of house wrap, Greg is going to literally be able to just tape the joint. And the benefit being is that Greg and I are a two-man team. So I don't know how many guys you guys keep on your crews, but it takes Greg and I quite a while to do some high quality work. We're not just slapping it up and running to the next job, which means that a lot of times our jobs are exposed for a number of days, weeks, sometimes even months. We've had this product sitting out there 6 months because we were waiting on black windows during the pandemic. And it was like, if this would have been a house wrapped exterior over top of some standard commodity, or we would have replaced the house wrap, it would have blown off. The amount of water damage would have been hard to even appreciate because unless you removed the house wrap to see where the water was going in. So this is an expense. There's no doubt there's a cost associated with this, but I'm not always looking at the upfront cost because this is a product, this is part of the process that you're never going to do again. You're probably never going to do it again. It's the life of the structure is the inside. You might change your kitchen cabinets. You might go in and change, some doorknobs or new cabinetry in your bathrooms, whatever. This is your structure. This is the important part of your building. So I'm always a big believer in spend the money there, not only for your client's sake, but you as a builder, because I know as soon as we're done with this, I don't have to worry about the storm damage, the water infiltration. I've got a nice, strong structure that I can then, not have to worry about, right? The problem with post frame is we're not stick frame, right? So there's some things that we have to do differently that not always are done with a stick frame. When you do a stick frame home, you got a bottom sill plate. You're not sitting directly on the concrete. We have, joists. We have a basement system. You're able to get a sill sealer down at the concrete. Everybody's familiar with what I'm talking about. Behind this, there's a piece of grade board, but it's only 1.5 inches wide. It's hard to get a piece of sill sealer there. What we've started doing is, there's this product by a European company. Greg and I traveled to Switzerland, visited this company. I'm not getting paid to say this, okay? This stuff is amazing. It sticks to concrete, sticks to your wood, and it works phenomenal, okay? And the proof is in the pudding, and when I talked about blower door tests, we'll get there. All these things that we are doing are in hopes of having a good blower door score. So we're not just wasting our time and our energy. Let's just cut this down to size. We'll go ahead and stick it on here. Or do we need to stick it on here? So I'm not gonna stick it on there because I gotta take it back off, okay? But I'm gonna show you the product anyway. So this specifically, what's nice about it is because it can be a little challenging wrapping around your sheathing down to your concrete, because we all know, even though I tried to make this as a really nice looking demo, nice and flat, straight, the real world is not like that. And this is a very forgiving product. So it moves with the imperfect concrete. It sticks well to it. It has a double-sided backing. And the important thing is, once again, building science is where our industry is going. We're talking more about building science because of the fact that energy efficiency, sustainability, you hear this carbon negative, all these different terms. As a builder, we need to adapt with that as well. We need to build a little bit better. This product helps breathe. So there's permeability that's based into this product. So it's made specifically for like the science at each location. Does that make sense? We're not just kind of like taking the WeatherLogic tape, which is made to go here, and sealing it up down there. We're not just taking some silicone and shoving it into this crack down here. We're using a product that is made specifically for this. So we're not going to go ahead and put that in. I don't think so. The other nice thing about doing this, even if you are going to put metal on, windows, doors, porch flashings, maybe where a roof line is dying into it, this gives you a nice solid backing for proper flashing. So many times I get pictures sent to me because guys are just, right on the side of a wall, they're putting a piece of flashing and they're just stitcher screwing a couple screws to hold it there. And it might work that day, but it's not good long-term choices, I don't think. So by having this, anywhere that you're gonna put a piece of flashing, you can flash it and a guy can easily tape to the material right here without having to be very thoughtful on his, okay, which way is overlapping. You just think like water and you shingle upwards, right? Any questions on the...
So are you taking your Switzerland tape and you're wrapping that around the bottom nailer then too?
Okay, so good question. He asked what we're doing with this tape. I guess we kind of blazed over it because I didn't think it was too much information, or I didn't want to give you too much information, but we're taking this, we're applying this to our WeatherLogic, like so, and then we're taking the bottom strap backing off, and it's going down to the concrete. So in essence, we're creating, in a typical home, that's where most people say most of your energy is lost, at the footing to wall connection. They're not properly air sealed, and they're not properly insulated. So this is creating an air seal down at the bottom, and we're not getting air into the cavity of the wall. So many times people are like, yeah, but Kyle, if you build that tight, it's not gonna be able to breathe. I mean, someone told me once, if your building is breathing, then you need an exorcist, okay? Your building should not breathe. Your job as a builder is to make it as tight as possible and then mechanically bring in clean, fresh air at when you want it. You don't want just air flowing through, because with air, you get dirt, you get dust, you get mold, you get moisture, all things that we don't want in our walls, especially when we're living in them. So this is where we're starting to think about, this is a post frame. We're using the post frame skeleton to build our structure, but yeah, you're not gonna maybe go through all this to just put your John Deere tractors in. That's not what we're talking about. This is high performance. This is people that are building their forever homes, because unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, social media has turned barn dominiums. In fact, there's Stacy Lynn's around here somewhere. Oh, she's right here. Look at this, Stacy Lynn. So, she has done such a great job showcasing the beauty of barn dominiums. But that doesn't mean you can just go and turn around and just build it like you've built a barn, because we're living in these, right? So, any other questions on the WRB? I mean, don't be shy. I can answer them, or we can just keep going, because obviously we're going to get through this.
What makes you use that instead of thin?
So the only reason so this is about $4 a board cheaper. I have actually a lot of good relationship with LP, and because I use LP SmartSide on a lot of our buildings, when you combine this with SmartSide, which is an engineered wood product also, I like it over like a hardy fiber cement because you're going to have some movement in a post frame, whether that be wind deflection or whatever. Hardy is a concrete-based product. I've seen a lot of cracking. So I'm a big believer in the smart side. When I use these two together, I get a 50-year full warranty. So from like my building standpoint, that's pretty huge. Your structure and your siding, 50-year substrate warranty. So cheaper, better, and honestly, I like the blue better than the green. So that's honest. It looks a lot better, man. Yeah, so I've had a lot of clients, we get this finished. And that's, I'll be honest, you guys laugh. It means a lot to a client when they show up to the job site that you're building for them and it looks good. If it's house wrapped, I don't know how many times I drive by a production home builder site and the house wrap's upside down, it's wrinkly, and some people are like, dude, you're not getting paid to make it look good. That's kind of true, but also not, because you'll get hired because your house wrap is going the right way and there's no wrinkles in it and you look like you know what you're doing. And so when you go to a product like this, once again, the benefit being people see it. They're like, that's the siding or the sheeting? I don't know what that is. They start asking questions and they see that you're doing next level work. You're not just status quo. And it's hard to get there because you're afraid to invest your business that way and to go out on a limb. But depending on the type of work you want to do, if you want to do high-end barn doors, if you want to be known in your space as doing, high quality work, going this route is how you do it, because people start seeing that as that's the type of builder I want. I want someone who's not just throwing house wrap upside down with wrinkles, even though it doesn't matter. It's right here. It's the mentality of what's behind the entire process. So if we don't have any other questions about this, we'll go ahead and flip it around and kind of get to the inside. Any questions? Okay. Once again, we're going to have to do a little bit of manual labor, Greg, because of my shortcomings on this insight. Which way you want to go? You go that way? Okay. Here, 1 second, buddy. Okay, so now we're to the inside of the post frame. Once again, this side being kind of the way we used to always do it. Does this look familiar to most people? Are we using a vapor barrier like a 6 mil poly for, in this region, most of the time they're going to recommend a vapor barrier. We're in level 5. There's all sorts of classes for what you're going to do for this, so it's always a little tough because depending on where you live, you're going to want to make sure that you follow that code. So we use a vapor barrier on the inside, and I didn't do this, but I was going to. I'm just going to cut this back. So this is how we would normally insulate all of our structures. We've got fiberglass insulation, okay? Fiberglass is pretty inexpensive, and it does work. It has R value. This is an R19. You can kind of see the problem with fiberglass, in my opinion, is it doesn't always fill up the cavity real nice. We're doing tall walls. It's pretty heavy material for the support that it has. And so my biggest fear with fiberglass was always, am I going to lose R value specifically up at the top? And most experts would say on a tall wall, yes, the fiberglass can sag over time. Now, sometimes I see guys will put the fiberglass with the coated face or whatever on the outside. They'll put it behind the girts, underneath the steel. That's not the best solution either, in my opinion, because now you're compressing on all the girts, so you're losing R value. So we went to, the next best thing was like, well, shoot, dude, let's start using spray foam. Let's talk people into spray foam. Spray foam is pretty easy. Crew comes in a day or two, the whole building is spray foamed, and it does a pretty good job. I'm not going to bash spray foam at all in this conversation. However, I think it also has its place, and it doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, belong in like homes. I wouldn't do it in my home, okay? That's not based off of scientific research. It's based off of experiences that I've had with the product. So what we've decided to start doing is using this product here, which is rock wool. And once again, thanks to social media, I've been exposed to a lot of different products, a lot of different methods, a lot of different science. And there's a lot of reasons that this specifically is why I chose it for the last couple barn doors I've done and my own personal project. So anybody know what rock wool is? It's a mineral wool product. Okay, does anybody know the benefits of it over a spray foam? So spray foam typically, are you guys using closed cell? Closed cell? Yeah? Are we doing open cell spray foam? Okay, some open cell. Closed cell spray foam, 2 inches, you're gonna get your, depending on the density of the foam, you're gonna get your vapor barrier, R 6 to 7, depending on, how it was sprayed, what the temperatures. There's a lot of variables with spray foam. Once again, it's the reason I'm not a huge fan, because it really does depend on when you apply it. We just did some spray foam in some tricky spots at my own place because I was like, well, this makes sense to use spray foam. It was a little bit colder out. Did it work? No. So I had to cut a bunch of it out and redo it. So because of that, we're in Northern Illinois. I'm building all year. I can't just rely on perfect conditions to get a good job and consistent job, because all your materials, everything has to be at the right temperature. Not to mention, it's not fun to work with. Rock wool or spray foam is not great to work with, and there's an off-gassing that I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but spray foam closed cell is a bunch of little bubbles, right? So that's your R value is through all those bubbles that are held together. And I wish that I had one of my buddies who's a lot more building sciencey than me. As those burst, that is the off-gassing. That's what you're getting, is the off-gassing. It's in your cavity. Every time one of those bursts, that's when you reduce your R value. So the problem is, as a builder, I'm doing probably a much easier job. I can just hire a spray foam, but I can't guarantee that all the conditions were met properly to get the exact R value that they needed, the vapor barrier seal, and I also can't say that in 20 years they're going to have the same R value, okay? So that's where I feel very personally responsible to say, is there something better? And that's where we found this product. So I'm going to open this up. This is an R23, and it's made completely from rocks. So once again, we talk about sustainability. We talk about things that are a little bit more healthy, better for our end users, our clients. This doesn't off-gas. It's made from rock. It's hydrophobic. What that means is it doesn't hold water, okay? Water will run out of it. What happens, if you have a wall that is completely closed cell and your window is leaking? You don't know about it, you get paid, you're out of there, right? No, that's not a good thing. This is going to at least allow me to still have the ability to see what is going on in my wall during construction and after construction. So fiberglass is great for that too. I know what I've got. I can make sure that it's performing. I can put it in all the bays, make sure it's, not too tight. I've got gaps, I can fix that, right? So I have control. If you can see the theme here, I like to be in control of my builds because I want my client to get the best possible, okay? So the other big thing about this product and why I really fell in love with it, why is that so tight, Greg? It's okay. That looks really tight there.
It was. That's how it was at the shop.
Okay. We never locked our tires. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but the thing you notice about this product is how it fills up the cavity, right? And there's a couple things that are important when it comes to building science and having this cavity being filled up, which is another reason I didn't like spray foam. Listen, I want to like spray foam. It is way easier for me as a contractor to hire my guy to come in and I write him a check and this job is done and I'm back. The thing is, this fills the entire cavity up. When you guys do spray foam, what happens in this cavity? It's half empty, right? 3 inches of spray foam, you've got all this air. Now you have introduced a potential for thermal looping in your walls. Tall walls, you have heat, you have cold air. You now have this going on in your wall cavity. It's not really great because with that, that's where condensation and moisture are moving around in your wall cavity. With this product, it fills up my cavity. I don't have it. It's so dense, air can still pass through it. It's permeable, so I can dry, but it's not going to have that thermal loop. The other benefit is fire. Who knows what happens, even in this instance where there's all this air gap with fire. Fire can move up this wall, right? It is extremely hard for fire to move up a product that's made of rock that does not burn. In fact, I didn't bring it, did I? Whatever. I was gonna light it on fire because it doesn't do anything. So personally, what I found is out of these products, and if there's other products that you guys know for insulation, I'd love to chat with you because I'm always looking for better. But we build mostly on concrete, slabs, walls. So this can sit down on concrete and it won't wick moisture. This will. So I don't like that, right? This won't burn. Spray foam burns. This fills up the entire cavity. It gives me good, consistent R value that I can see right here. We've also got, where is those little guys there? Go grab the comfort. Any questions so far? Because I know that when I came out here and I started saying some negativity around spray foam, I'm probably going to get some hate, and people are going to say, dude, that's all we do. And I'm not saying that is wrong. I'm telling you guys why I've moved away from it, and I would love to have discussions on why I'm wrong, because I don't ever pretend to be right. These are off of experience. This is through what we've done and how we've tried to give the best to our client. So the other thing that we've done on my own build that I think is great, because this is all about post frame, not just on, this product, is this detail here we've added to our builds, and this is, you guys know what thermal bridging is? So when we talk building science, I love post frame and what it has afforded us to build the most efficient homes for people, okay? Stick frame construction, standard stick frame, you're looking at 14% of thermal bridging in your wall assembly, okay? So what that means is 14% of this outside wall doesn't get insulation in a standard home. They get thermal conductivity through your studs. Wood is not a great insulator. It's better than metal, but it's not great. So with post frame, with this design, with putting, having this exterior girt, another reason I do exterior girts, not like a bookshelf, because bookshelves are now a thermal bridge, every bookshelf. I've reduced my thermal bridging on this wall assembly to just over 1% of the wall. So what that means is I have less condensation potential, I have less energy loss. In the end, a more comfortable home, right? So we've got this wall insulation. It's packed with all this nice, material, but we got to do something else, because once again, this is how we used to do it, and this is a great way to stop moisture from entering into your wall cavity, right? The problem is, what happens if there's moisture here? What if you build the house and the day the guys come to put the walls up, it rained a day before and everything is still a little bit wet? What happens? It can't make its way out. It will be in there and it will be doing, even if it's minute damage. Mold is like the scariest thing in the world as a builder. I don't want someone coming to me and saying, I got mold, I got mildew. So what we've started using is this other product, and this is where our friends from Switzerland, and believe it or not, guys, this is not new. This is new for us Americans and even more new for this post-frame industry. But when we went to Europe, this is all the way anybody built. And over there, they're so concerned with energy. They're concerned with comfort. They have 400-year-old homes that they want to last. And believe it or not, I think I could confirm this. And actually, we got Chris back here, who's my local Rockwool guy. But I was told this last week that they pulled out some Rockwool, which is a mineral wool product, out of the CEO's grandpa's or dad's house. And it was 70 years old, and they tested it. And it was still the exact same R value, same size, same everything. That for me makes me feel really good as a builder, saying I'll put this product in your house knowing that it's going to last. I can't say that out of spray foam. Why? Because I've seen it personally over the course of a week pull apart from my wood because of not the right perfect conditions. I've seen houses that I've remodeled back in my remodel days that were 20 years old, and I could put my finger between the stud because wood moves, spray foam gets pretty hard. So I'm not trying to bash the products. I think that there's a place and a time for everything. I think understanding some of the positives and negatives, it just is another tool in your arsenal to say, hey, actually, we could do this for you because you seem like the client that cares about maybe wanting to go the extra step. And, that's just my food for thought. So anyway, this product right here, I don't think I'm gonna, I'll just tack it up, Greg. Maybe just take it to the corner. I don't think we have to do the tape. Yeah, I don't think we'll have to do the tape. So this is called Sega Myrex. And anybody heard of a smart membrane? Smart membrane? So it was explained to me that this technology came from a guy thinking about a cactus. And in the desert, cactuses are constantly, being bombarded by heat, and they need to preserve their moisture. But in the nighttime, they condensate, and then that cools them down, and it makes them, be able to live in the desert. This product is very similar in that it is woven and designed with different fibers, like a cactus's membrane, to allow moisture to go the way that it has to go. So think about like a check valve, on your plumbing. Water can only go one way and it doesn't come back the other way. This is not allowing your cooking moisture, your showering moisture, your breathing vapor, all that stuff that happens in your house, it's not allowing it into your wall cavity, just like this. So they work very similar in that nature. However, on the flip side, any moisture that is in here, first off, can't and is not going to be stuck in the rock wool because it's hydrophobic. It will drain out, it will pass and permeate, and it will come out of the Sega Myrex. So keeping your wall assembly dry. It allows outward drying into the home, and with the weather logic on the outside, which is also permeable, it allows outward drying, and that is literally the number one thing that can ruin a home is improper this being done improperly and having moisture inside of your wall cavities. I would talk price with you guys, but I think it's very unfair to talk price because we're so, in different areas. But is this a more expensive system? 100%. It's 100% more expensive. Well, not 100%, but I think you know what I mean. It's definitely more expensive. But the whole point is, as a builder, somebody who started here, who has hopefully a goal to leave some form of a legacy. Greg and I build these structures. There's nothing more proud as a builder to drive around and see them, and then you tell your wife and your kids, and they're like, Dad, I've seen this one. You've told me about it. We want to do the best we can. So you don't ever get better by doing status quo. And this industry right now, I feel like, is at the cusp of just exploding with the barn dominiums, with all the new technology, with the ability for people to show their work on social media and get people interested in the ideas. But I think we also have an opportunity to grow the industry, to elevate it, to make it better by not just doing the way, personally, the way I did it 12 years ago, but by trying to find better products, better methods, and then also better sleep at night knowing that this was the best I know. This is literally the best I know. And that's the problem with building science. Greg and I talk about this, and it's like, yeah, but we could just do it like we did it. It worked, right? I mean, I never heard anybody complain about it. But once you start to learn the benefits, the reason that, I use the rock wool, literally there's not a reason not to use it versus the other products. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that I'm not down talking anything to say that I would still use spray foam in certain applications, is what I'm saying. But if I'm going to build somebody a home where I know that they want the best, most comfortable, we didn't even talk about sound. The sound quality in your home with Rockwell is mind-blowing, and you have to experience that. It's not something I can really even share with you, but it's mind-blowing. So that's kind of my talk, guys. I mean, I just want to elevate the industry. I want to kind of keep pushing it, and I also want to answer any questions that you guys have. So before we kind of break, because I know some people aren't going to want to ask them publicly, and that's totally cool. Anybody got any questions about this assembly or the mindset behind it, or even any challenges to it? Because I'm for all of it. You wanna?
Have you ever done netting where you blow cellulose or fiberglass in your wall cavity?
Yeah, good question. So I actually have talked to my installation contractor about that, and we're going to actually probably try maybe to do something like that in the future. We've done blown cellulose, packed cellulose. The problem is it gets packed so much that they're kind of afraid to do it with. I'd actually do all my girding first. Does that make sense? So because the bay is so big, you can handle that in a 16-inch on center stud bay. I've never done it. Have you done it? 24-inch on center? Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's something that I would like to try, because I think a dense pack is even better. We've got these cavities. So on my build, I actually filled this whole, I just ripped, this is a comfort board. So this is also rock, by the way. This is an R6, R23. So in a 2x6 wall, my effective R value is very close to almost an R30. And the reason that is that way is because I don't have thermal bridging through all that area. And, yeah, windows, doors, those are going to account for that. But yeah, a blown-in product would be great to just fill that whole cavity, I think. I just haven't done it yet. One thing, though, I was going to mention that I didn't get into, and it's because I forgot. I was going to bring a couple studs just to show. So do we have guys that do bookshelf girts? Okay, that's cool, dude. There's nothing wrong with bookshelf girts. I know a lot of people love them. It makes the interiors go a lot quicker. The reason I like the exterior girt, the filled cavity, and then an interior girt is once this Myrex is installed, that is my air control layer. That is now like, think of it like a Yeti cooler, right? The reason a Yeti cooler works is because it's air sealed. It's not necessarily the amount of insulation, it's the air sealing that's being done. And every time I puncture this, like in a stud framed home where all my electrical boxes are, right? I have to air detail that. It's a pain in the butt. With us as post framers, we can run our interior girt post to post on top of the Myrex, and now I've got an 1.5 inch service cavity around my whole building. My electrician on the last barn door, he fought it. He was like, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to work around all this girding. By the time it was done, he probably had to punch a couple holes in the whole build, which we can very easily detail because it's only a couple, but the rest were all on the inside of the air control layer. And so we talked about blower doors. We had the blower door come down on our last 2 barn doors just because we just want to know. And we're not having architects draw this stuff up. It's not like we're trying to reinvent the wheel. This is stuff that's being done already. We're just implementing it in post frame. And passive home is 0.6 ACH 50, which means 60% of the volume of the house air can move naturally through that air at 50 Pascal, which is like a pressure point. So they put a blower in the door, they pressurize the house, and then they measure how much air, how much of that volume was able to get out of all your cracks. And it's a measurement on efficiency and how well detailed. And the last 2 were, Greg, correct me, 0.48 and 0.43. So sub-passive house. To give you an idea, there are a lot of homeowners out there who are paying 7 figures or more for builders to build them a passive home. And post frame is like, it's built for passive. With very little extra effort, you can air seal a post frame and give your client a super efficient home that is sub-passive, and you can do it at pricing that stick frame just can't touch. Now, there's always limitations. There's always design things that you have to think about. That's where somewhere like Stacy Lynn would be able to, help you walk through a design and say, yes, this is a great barn dough idea. I love it when a client sends me a picture and they're like, I want to build a barn dough. This is my inspiration. I'm like, yeah, that's not a barn dough. That's a stick frame that they put some metal on and they called it a barn dough. So there's a difference. But if you can kind of reel your clients in and say, listen, this is what we can do and this is why it's so good, then post frame is a phenomenal way to build a home. And, my last client, I called him just about a month ago because actually he ran into his garage door, so he wants us to come fix a piece of trim. That's awesome, isn't it? But he said, most comfortable home. He's paying $40 a month in his natural gas. And he's like, I can't even hear storms that are brewing. He's out in the middle of the country. But it's because of this, the air sealing, the sound quality that you get out of it, that just, he's happier than a clam. So, any other questions? Yep.
So if you're going to do a metal exterior,
Yep.
put your house wrap on there, can you still use the comfort board between the house wrap?
Good question. 100%. So this gentleman asked, like, if you don't do the sheathing on the outside, you're just going to do your normal steel. 100%. You can still do this whole entire. And in fact, I would argue to say that it's even more important to start doing that than the outside sheathing, because now you have house wrap, which, let's face it, every time you punch a staple, you get whatever. It rips and it can be easily ripped. You've introduced a potential for moisture. So even more important to have a product like a rock wool in that cavity that's going to allow it to just work its way right out the bottom and drain. So yeah, and I would still, I've had clients do that detail with, you know, XPS foam or whatever. Once again, I just like this because moisture can travel through it. Foam, it doesn't travel as well through it. So, yeah. Look at this guy. If you guys don't know who this guy is.
So what is your overall wall thickness by the time you get your girts on the inside?
So this is a 2x6 wall, and typically, you know, we're going to use a 2x6, especially if we're going, we're doing a 2-story barn door because we're going to get that added strength factor of our 2nd-story decking. But you know, that's all engineering. So you're going to obviously want to check with your engineer on how big of a pole you're going to use. But we've got 1.5 inches outside, 5.5, 1.5 inches. So it's about 8.5 inches. Yep. And you can get real crazy. You could come in and you could put, I've actually seen this done. You can then put your rock wool on the inside too over your post. So you're getting a, you know, right now this is an R6 plus 5.5. I don't know if that's like R10. I think it's 2. I don't know if somebody could correct me on that, but I think it's like an R value of 2 per inch on wood. So you could come through and add another, you know, layer of this and get an R26 even at your post location, which I'm telling you, it's, I've had a lot of guys look at our design that are not in this industry, and they're just like mind blown. They're like, I never would have considered how efficient and how amazing this system has lend itself to high performance building. So it's pretty cool. It's very exciting, to be honest. Anything else? Oh, we got one.
You have to put in a stiff curve, maybe for the entire post.
Great question. And actually, you bring up 2 things that I wanted to touch on. One being, I've done, I don't know how many homes now, drywalled interiors. And I ask every time I talk to that client, one of them being my own dad that we built in 2017. So we're going on 7 years now. And there's not one drywall crack anywhere in that home. And here's why I think that post frame, once again, is so great for building homes, is that we can get a roof on this building almost in the same week we start framing, right? None of those interior framing materials are even on the site. You can just leave them off the site, leave them in a lumber yard, keep them dry. And when you bring them in and you start framing your interior, that lumber's never getting wet. It's sitting inside a controlled space for you to build. The problem with traditional framing is you might do the 1st-story deck, you might put the 2nd-story deck, wait for trusses for a week because the engineers had to, you know, measure some things. And so in traditional framing, all that material is getting wet. With post frame, only that initial outside is getting wet, and it has time to dry, and you're bringing all your interior walls, your decking, your floor joists, they're coming in and they're not getting weathered like a traditional job site would. Or you have the opportunity to bring them all and get them under weather. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you talked about like additional support. We talked about it with the fiberglass. This is, I mean, I've worked with 18-foot tall walls laying fiberglass. That's heavy. It's very hard to hold up there. You can get it in the rolls. You can get 40 by, you know, 40-foot long rolls, whatever. These come in 2x4 bat right now. And on my build specifically, I've got like 20-foot walls. And we stacked this all the way up inside the bay, four pieces wide, 5 tall, and it didn't go nowhere. And I was worried about compression. You know, I didn't want the top of my wall settling over time inside that cavity, but this is so dense and it's so full in the cavity that it has nowhere to go. It's just a rock product. And it's friction fit. So we were able to take out the bottom row and everything up above it, 16 feet, it just stayed in the cavity. So that's another great benefit, but that's something people ask, and that's what your question made me think about. That is supportive. It's very supportive.
So no vertical stiff curve in the wall between the posts.
Nope.
In our area, Cody's asking us if we do things to put a continuous R5 on the outside of the wall.
Yep. Yeah. So that's happening everywhere. Believe it or not, I mean, new homes are going to have a continuous R value, and there might be, and I don't know the exact specifics, what that's going to look like, but I would venture to say that, you know, there might be a way to argue this process and say it's not needed because they're looking for thermal bridging. They're making sure that, you know, you don't have that in a stick frame, which they can't avoid. With this, we're talking about 1% thermal bridging. It's not even comparable to stick frame. So obviously I'm not a code official, but if my local code guy says you need, you know, an R5 continuous, I would argue with him and say, show me how that's better than this R30 wall that's almost 100% efficient.
So we're up in Wisconsin as well too. We're not too familiar with the Rockwell that product. And interested in looking into it further. Question for you is, on our walls, typically what we'll do is we'll use a 2x6 column. We'll put 2 inches of foam against the dirt on the outside. Then we'll build our stud wall against that foam, and then do our 11 or whatever back between that. Do you see an issue with that? I mean, I'm just kind of curious your take on that, because I'm assuming Rockwell is significantly more than what some customers may want to pay for. So is there a balance between?
So actually, I mean, cost-wise, the Rockwell product is not that much more. I mean, it's substantially less than going with a spray foam, like substantially. And I just can't always say, because I talked to a gentleman who gave me his cost for doing spray foam, and I was like, what? That's half what I would pay, So it's going to be very dependent on where you're at. But like square foot pricing between an R23 product and this like roll of R19, I don't want to say it's double, but once again, it kind of goes back to talking about using this here. You're not going to re-insulate your building. You're not going to re-insulate your home. Like, that's something that you do now and you reap the benefit forever. So I personally, like in the grand scheme of things, the cost of the installation is very small, probably a lot smaller than what they want to put in their kitchen countertop. So I just try to educate on that, but I'm not 100% sure on your question. So you do foam and then you do another wall in front of the foam and you insulate the wall? And that's inside of your posts? Yeah, I've seen people do that, and I often wonder, and I would love to chat, because I often think like, is that faster? I don't know the advantage of that. I always try to figure out why are people running vertical studs in a post frame when it's like, man, we've got an opportunity to just run this horizontal girt, give us a place to run all of our wiring. We can still do our drywall anywhere we have to like do a kitchen, cabinetry or something. We just run another girt there for securement. But I'd love to talk more about that. I don't see the problem with Rockwell though. Rockwell, it just is what it is. It doesn't hurt you at all. It only helps you. Sound, moisture, fire. I'm not, once again, a code official, but I worked with a company and they were on the cusp of printing the documentation where in a 2x4 studded wall with weather logic, so actually it was LP was doing this, and a smart side siding, they were able to, with Rockwell, get a 1-hour fire rated wall. That's all wood wall. Just the Rockwell alone was the difference maker in a firewall. So I think later they're going to be doing a firewall demonstration here, 3-hour firewall demonstration. This product right here is so dense and it protects from fire so well that it alone is the difference maker in a firewall rating. So for party walls, for just in general, putting it in your clients' homes, the fire can't spread. There's nowhere to go. So it's a great fire inhibitor.
How well does that work around window openings, door openings, and stuff like that with that Rockwell? Is it just a matter of cutting?
I mean, I've got a knife here. It's actually pretty cool. I mean, it's easy cut, easy to work with too. I mean, you guys can come up here, touch and feel it. When I work around this, oh my gosh, the stuff is everywhere. With this, yeah, if you're working overhead, they would definitely want you to wear, some sort of protection. I don't, and I don't ever notice it unless I'm really like working literally overhead. So it's a different material. It's not full of these little fibers that just fly in the air. So, and we use a table saw to cut it, track saw to cut it, circular saw. It's really nice. So I'm going to be hanging around. I'd love to, chat more, talk about this, because honestly, this is not just about me. Like, I like to present to you guys what we're doing so that I can get the feedback. I want to know, hey, Kyle, that actually sounds like a horrible idea. I'd love to tell you my idea, and I'm going to become a better builder because of it. And hopefully through this, maybe if anything, you guys just think about it more and say, hey, maybe Kyle was right. Maybe this is going to stop my wall from drying out. And I know Chris was over here. He's the Rockwell guy. in this area. They have an R class. It's a free membership. They will actually come out to your job site, help you install for a day, make sure you understand the product. They got rebates. I'm not getting paid by Rockwell to say that. I use it on my house because I genuinely believe that this is going to give me a better long-term result in my projects. So, all right, guys, I appreciate you guys hanging around, and feel free to come up and ask questions.